Before we start today's show, just a little heads up programming note. For those of you looking for the live Travers Monster Pod in your feed, you're not going to find it. We had some audio trouble. So it's one of those things, it's like a joke and you say that doesn't quite land and you say you had to be there. Well, when it comes to the Travers Monster Pod, you had to be there literally because only the 50 people who turned up at the Brentwood are going to get to hear that analysis. The sound was just too bad. And I apologize for that. But we got lots of other great content coming up on this show. We're going to start with a little Horse Players Happy Hour preview. We've got JK and Steve Crist who are going to be coming online, and the usual excellent array of guests, Race Lens segment with Matt Vagvolgyi covering Woodbine, and of course, Betmakers and Monmouth Park. Going to be telling you some good stuff about them later in the show as well. So we'll do the ads and then we'll roll the stuff and we'll rock and roll. The big ads for today's show, we got to thank our sponsors over at Adelphi Racing Club. And here's the good news. Lately, we've been talking about Adelphi Racing Club. They haven't had inventory. They've got inventory again because they were very active. I want to say we were very active since I'm part of the club at the Fasig-Tipton yearling sale for New York breds, purchasing an Arrogant colt out of the family of Audible and Governor Malibu, headed to Christophe Clement, a beautiful toneless filly out of a stakes place dam, also going to be heading in the direction of the Clement barn, and a hard spun colt who was very, very impressive walking around ahead of the sales. Going to be going to trainer Ray Handel. Join the club, adelphiracing.com, or reach out to our man, Matt Kater, Matt at adelphiracing.com. Also want to tell you all about the Jocks Room. If you've been paying attention to our content this week, you've probably heard about this amazing project that is, yes, it's horse racing NFT, but it's collected to a real world collectible that also gives you essentially an access ticket to a really cool fan club. So I want you to check it out. Jocksroom.io. That's Jocks with a Z, Jockz room.com. Going to have a lot of information there. The top 10 riders at Saratoga, all going to have their own collectibles with special perks that we're going to be participating in. You can also check out the really cool NFT collectible they did for Epicenter. We did an example of what some of the premium content for that's going to look like. The legendary Racing Prospect NFT for Epicenter. Check that out. Openstable.io. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show for Travers Day, Travers weekend. Saturday, August 27th is where most of the races we're going to be talking about are happening. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, coming to you from the Little House on the East Side. We're doing that gimmick where we combine forces to mash up with Horse Players Happy Hour. If you're unfamiliar with Horse Players Happy Hour, this is something you got to get involved in, folks. $20 contest every Thursday, interconnected series. We've got $20,000 added to the tour pot. You only have to play 1 week to potentially be eligible for that. And all the money goes to Thoroughbred Aftercare. You can check that out on horseplayers.com. We have a lot of fun. We bring in a lot of guests, as you can see from the array of talent that we have here with you. The first of them, I'm just going to bring them in one at a time, and then we'll and get their thoughts on the races, because we already did the intros already on this show. We will start with our friend coming to us from the Netherlands, staying up late, Naomi Tukker. Naomi, how are you? And who do you like in the Pat O'Brien this weekend?
Very well, Peter. It's not that late. I mean, it's 22:11, sort of late. I did actually have a glass of wine, so I'm beating Michelle at that one, but I guess I had more hours in a day to do so. So, no, look, it's the Pat O'Brien seemingly is going to go through the 8 speakers corner, right? Bill Mott shipped him all the way across the country, basically, for this winner you're in race. Instead of keeping him at Saratoga, you look back at the John Nerud, where he was the only horse in the entire field to go with Life is Good. Life is Good then went on to win the Whitney. Of course, British Cup Dirt Mile, Pegasus. We know how good Life is Good is. And Speaker's Corner stayed with him for as long as he could before kind of, tiring belatedly. But if you just look at the body of work that he's done, won the Carter handicap as well, just tremendously good horse. Quality-wise, seemingly stands above this field. So you start looking for perhaps a couple of horses that could be interesting. I think Laurel River is interesting, not just because of the name, of course, bias. Laurel Park, Laurel River should be good, right? He came back over 328 days break at Del Mar, took a huge step forward, is what it felt like. He just broke cleanly for the Baffert stable, was asked by Hernandez to kind of move forward, hold the rail, had some horses come over, did so willingly, kind of relaxed into it, slipped through, and they just dominated the field. Now, that was a couple pegs below that what he will be encountering today, but I'll take, that second after a break moving forward. And I do think, based on the time from US pace figures as well, that he's got enough pace to be right up there with them from the get-go over 7 furlongs.
You like the same 2 horses that I do, so I'll just jump in and go. My fear about Speaker's Corner is maybe, he's done his best work on the lead. I think he might be better suited by stalking and pouncing in this spot. And it's going to be hard because he's got speed to his inside and he's got potential speed to his outside. I guess that's my little bit of a concern from looking at this race from a pace standpoint. But you made the key points to me, Naomi, which is when you look at figures and crucially, when you look at form and you see those last 2 names in the form lines that have beaten him, and we know what they're capable of, he might just be different sauce. I'm going to go with Speaker's Corner as well. And I feel like Laurel River's a little bit interesting to maybe keep enough gas in the tank to stick in there and go along with him. I don't know that the closers are going to have enough opportunity to get involved with the quality of speed that's signed on here. But very curious to hear what our other guests have to say. And we'll start with the usual co-host from Horse Players Happy Hour and a man who you know from his own eponymous podcast, TV's Matt Bernier. Are Naomi and I making this too simple as well?
No, I mean, unfortunately, I'm echoing a lot of the same things. Speaker's Corner is a good horse. I do fear that maybe his form's going a little bit the wrong way, despite the fact that the figs don't necessarily reflect that. Laurel River is the one I'm probably most interested in, but this is going to be a bit of a cop-out because I hear a lot of people looking at Speaker's Corner. I think Laurel River is going to be a bit of the wise guy horse in here. I thought American Theorem was really good in that last race. And you look at his 1-turn record, if for whatever reason he's, I haven't seen a morning line. I don't even know if it's out yet. 5-2, somewhere thereabouts.
4-1 morning line.
He's 4? Oh, I mean, then he's the pick. American Theorem. He was just so good in that last race. There wasn't a ton of pace. Bravo lost the stick at one point. Didn't make a difference. I thought he was really, really strong in that spot. It feels like Papa Prodromo's got him as good as he's ever been, and he's always been a good horse. Those are the 3 that I was most interested in. Again, Laurel River, I think, is going to get overbet. And Speaker's Corner, sure, he could certainly win. I just think maybe his best days are not, I don't want to say they're behind him. I think maybe he's going the wrong direction for this form cycle. I'll go with American Theorem.
American Theorem is an interesting one because this is a case you see once in a while and it leaves you scratching the head. I feel like he was on the right part of the racetrack maybe last day, but the flow should have been against him, and he made it look like it was no problem at all. And if you do take that race at face value, there's a real case to be made for him. I was sort of thinking he might struggle to get involved on dynamics this day, but you make a compelling case for him, Matt. Why don't we bring in our third guest who knows, who's watched a lot more Del Mar, I think, probably than the rest of us. She's got a flower pot. Or is that one of those?
I wanted to have a microphone like Matt Bernier's. What is that thing right now?
The world's biggest neti pot.
Perhaps.
We don't want to see that.
This one, no? But with like a
little different. Similar.
Yeah, Matt's looks like this. Like it looks like he's talking into this right now. Does my sound better like this? What if I aim it the way?
The echo is
louder. It's louder.
Anyway, she's Michelle Yu. What's going on, Michelle? Tell us about this race.
All right. So I was not an American Theorem fan going into the Bing Crosby personally. I think that he was just a hit or miss type horse. And I think that things set up for him really well in the Triple Bend. But Matt was right. The way he won the Bing Crosby, he was, to quote Trevor, moving like a tremendous machine. Or not Trevor, what's his name? I mean, that's what he looked like though, right? He was moving so fast and everybody else was standing still. Go ahead.
No, I was just giving. I was struggling with the name, but isn't it Chick Anderson? Isn't that the
might have been called the Secretariat?
Yeah, the famous TV call of Secretariat.
Okay, so
Trevor's moving like a winner, but you know that.
Yeah, but I at the time I'm like, not a winner, tremendous machine is what he looked like to me, right? With his big white tail flapping behind him, and I was like, damn, he looked good. And I'm not a fan, so for me to say like he looked good, it made me like second guess. Now, All that being said, I don't think I want to play him on top, because for him to get 3 in a row, he'd have to like improve again. And I feel like we've kind of seen the ceiling of what he can be. So I kind of like defunded in here for Baffert. He's 8-1 on the morning line. He's going to take the blinkers off after back-to-back starts with them on. I love a horse on a turn back, especially going this distance, which is this challenging 7 furlongs. This horse is sharp. He's worked 111 and change a couple times in the morning. So I just feel like, we know he's going to get that. He is coming in off efforts where he was speed and fade. Now he's probably not going to be in the front end, because his 46 is not going to cut it here against some of these that can go significantly faster. But I just think that if he's going to be close to that price, I'm going to play him, because just because he was going 47, a mile and a 16th doesn't mean he doesn't have it in him to go faster. And we'll have to wait and see what Baffert's going to play with here. But I actually prefer him to Laurel River. I'm just not a huge Laurel River fan, unless you're looking at him because he's gorgeous. He's just kind of like a blah blah horse to me. For sure, I'm going to be betting on the 2, Principe Carlo. 15-1. This is like my heart horse. I loved him when he was in our barn. He has been so good since he had a really big layoff, and Liberado's done a good job with him. I'll tell you, his Bing Crosby and his California Sprint, he doesn't like 6 furlongs. Stop running in 6 furlongs, okay? He needs to go further. So for me, like the 6.5 is okay. The 7, I think, is even better. You saw, if you went back and watched the Triple Bend, I mean, he was balls to the wall there and just got beat by American Theorem. And we're talking about a cow-bred son of Coil here, right? Like, it's not like he's bred to be a champ. He is so tenacious. I feel like he's relatively versatile. I would say the only drawback for me in this situation, I don't like Victor riding him. I feel like he needs a little more aggressive ride than Victor gives him. I actually really liked when Maldonado rode him. So sorry to all you Victor people out there. But I am totally going to bet Principe Carlo coming back here because of the distance scenario. And he should be like a pretty big price. And if he just hits the board at this big price, I'll be really happy with him.
One of the fun things we do on Horse Player Happy Hour for those
is talk crap about Hall of Fame.
There's a little bit of that goes on when you're on the air. Race calls, that goes on. But we also like to ask questions or answer questions from the audience. Rob wants to know, does he like to go 6 furlongs?
Does he?
And then in a more serious note, Jackson has an interesting run by you all. If this thing melts down, any shot for Senor Buscador to get a Trevor Denman just dropped in at the quarter pole?
No, Senor Buscador, he only beats like horses like Cowan, who were horses that everybody else beat as well. If you want to hear a good interview, though, we interviewed his owners on the Owners Box last year. So they're really funny. Yeah.
Yeah, send that on Twitter and we'll amplify it.
I don't know how to find stuff, Pete. It's like that's your job. I just
I'll find it. Jeez, I do everything around here.
I know. Right. If someone's gonna pick up some pieces, it's gonna be the Chosen Brawn. I'm all about some Calbreds in this open stake right now. The Chosen Brawn looked so good in the Cal Dreamin' last time out. He was coming off a layoff. He'd never run on grass, although he is relatively bred for it. And it was going farther than he'd been in a long time. I liked him in that race. He got beat by horses that have been running with recency, so I think he could absolutely improve. I like the turn back in distance for him. The Chosen Brawn is the one. If everything sizzles in front of him and for some reason can't stay the 7, the Chosen Brawn picks him up.
If you're watching or listening on the Players Podcast, we are going to go to a break. And if you're watching with us live, we have more Winning You're In action to talk about in the form of the Grade 1 Sword Dancer. And Matt, I'm very curious to get your opinion about this really interesting, to my mind, Aidan O'Brien Invader Broom. I think you, like me, looking at a lot of these New York turf races at the graded stakes level, you long for some strangers to come in because the form's a bit tired. There are some angles and some things you can point out, certainly, about the local contingent, but I feel like Broom is proven to like USA conditions and might take a lot of beating in this spot. What do you think?
Well, the tough thing is, to your point, like these horses in New York, they just take turns beating each other. I'm not blown away by any of them. I guess Adamo maybe is the freshest face of them all. So I immediately just said, well, Broom's going to win. And for whatever reason, right, wrong, or indifferent, Nick Luck is burned into my brain. And I know what he thought of Broome for a long, long time. And for him to be the only European here, despite the fact that he finished second in the turf last year, I've said it, I don't think it was a very good, addition of the Breeders' Cup turf. I don't know. I mean, if it's not him, I think it could be anybody. Trabuvin was setting a pretty legitimate pace in the UN. I don't know if he's a true 1.5 mile horse. The rest of them, is it their turn? Maybe. I don't know. They just take turns beating each other. I don't love the race. Put it that way. I don't have a strong opinion.
It's tricky. It's tricky. I think Nick is reacting to some of the hype around this horse, right? I think I think when you evaluate it on its merits, when you evaluate the race on its merits and look at Broome for how he fits against this group, it's a little different than thinking about Broome being, a top, not that he isn't a stallion prospect, but, trying to position him as some top stallion prospect. That's how I would address that one. What do you think of Broome, Naomi?
I never really bought into him that much, to be quite honest. So when you were saying, Nick Luck, my piece of virtue was I would like to beat him in this. He's going to take some money. It's Aidan O'Brien. I know Aidan O'Brien had said after the Hardwick that he really turned a corner. He's back to his top form. And then, if you look at who he ran against in the King George, of course, pile driver, the ARC winner, Torquato Tasso, Mishriff, he was out of his depth. This is a completely different group, much easier by all means and virtues. And he could outclass them. Now, the only case that I actually could make for him here is that Ryan Moore will have to get really clever and make sure that he's up close enough, because I don't think they're going to go that fast over 1.5 miles on the turf here. I've seen it before. I do think that Ryan Moore is the kind of rider, if he believes that they aren't turning this into a stayers race, aka they're not going, he's going to make a move. He's going to move forward. He's going to put this horse in a position that he can actually win. So I'm kind of banking on Ryan Moore here. Have Broome in my top 3, but I am trying to beat him. And I think this is Aidan O'Brien's 4th try at winning this race, and he's never won it before.
Didn't he win this race? I mean, you have to go way back, but
I don't know.
My brain.
I looked it up.
Oh, you look. It wasn't just a formulator stat. This is embarrassing that I can't remember.
Japan close second last year.
But never mind. I'm clear. If you looked it up, I'm wrong, and I'm thinking of a different.
Well, it was like the press release, and it said, what was it? Idaho 6th in 2017, Seahenge 9th in 2018. Japan 2nd in 2021.
By the way, sensing a theme when you hear those names. Very much like meh, they're fine.
Yeah.
You're taking a shot.
Not the A
group.
level group.
No, right. No, as the ones that ship not at the end of the year rarely are. But who's your alternative? Who do you think is going to get the job done?
I'm actually I want a bit of a long shot in here. I think 12th one right now in the 10 Mirror Mission, just because I feel like, why not go with a long shot here? I believe it's wide open. This is okay. There are a couple of ifs. It's a 4-year-old gelding, first time going this long, but he is by Noble Mission. Noble Mission, full brother to Frankel, won 3 Group 1s himself, including over this trip. So I'm hoping there's a little bit of stamina in here. But I'm going back to that Turf Classic race where he just got bested by Santon, who then came back to win the Arlington Million with a 106 Bayern. That was over 1.8 miles on the turf. I think they just, perhaps that mile over Saratoga when he came back from a break, not entirely, it wasn't his day. I don't have particular excuses for him, but I'm thinking, why not try him longer? He's shown he's got some class. He was close enough to Tribovan. That's how I say it, Tribovan?
It feels like there's 14 different ways I've heard.
Okay, I say Tribovan, but he was close enough to him. Tribovan was going pretty fast over that 1.8 miles there, all red coded time for him, US. And then he kind of made a move into it, got eyeballed by Santa. The two of them ding-dong to the wire, just got bested. But I thought that was a huge run. If Mirror Mission can run back to something like that, I think at 12-1, he's a horse that I want to be a part of, especially perhaps picking up a placing. If he doesn't win, because of course there are some other horses in here that you could also make a case for, but because there are a couple, I want some value.
I can't blame you for wanting to reach for a price in a spot like this. I mean, Adamo, deserving favorite, very impressive the last day, but is this a horse that I really want to take 3-1, 5-2 on. Not really. I think I'd rather roll my dice with the idea that Broome, the Stranger, is, as you suggested, Naomi, maybe just the class of the field. Michelle, what are your thoughts on the Sword Dancer? Have you had a chance to dive deep into this one, or give us a sort of an overview of where you are with the race and what stands out to you?
It's a turf race at Saratoga, right?
It is.
I'm just going to bet Chad Brown.
But which one?
I mean, who cares? All of them. I mean, I don't care. I gotta say, I have like a love-hate relationship with Mirror Mission because I was desperate for him in the Turf Classic on Derby Day, and he disappointed me. Hit the front where I was like jumping up and down and like peed myself, and then got beat. So really pissed about that horse. Okay, so I don't know if I can even back him against that. I play it in a fantasy league with horse racing, and Tribhuvan is actually in my stable. So if that pig could win, that would be great. I'm so angry at him. Right? No, I really do. I do have him in my stable. He obviously won the Manhattan. I don't know if he can win this race. I would love to see him out there winging it. I don't know why he just wings it and then stops. I have not figured him out yet. But again, it's Chad Brown, the grass. So I'll just put him in my little bucket. I'll just collect all of them. I mean, I don't really have a strong opinion. I honestly didn't look at the race too deeply because I'm off air before this race goes off. But it just seems really safe if I say like Chad Brown in a turf race. I mean, it's not, honestly, if I'm going to go Brown over Broome. Okay. Like for sure. I think Broome gets beat by a Brown.
The Tribhuvan case that I think is interesting, I don't necessarily buy this, but I think it's interesting, is that actually, even though he was kind of inefficient the last day in the UN, that he's really better when he just pedal to the metal right from the get-go.
If you have speed, don't take it away. Just go
faster. Like he went okay fast, but like really try to bottom him out and just hope that the way the course is playing, etc., type 2 turn, that you just go on with it. I wonder how, I mean, obviously we know what the tactics are with him, but I wonder within being a front runner, just how fast he'll go. It's not crazy. I'd like to think that, a channel maker or somebody will make him work. And I'd like to think that Ryan Moore, as Naomi suggested, won't be as far back as he was in that horse's other North American start. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Tell us, let's do a little recap. What are we all doing work-wise coming up that people should be aware of? Michelle, since you're here on a work assignment, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I will be working for Naira. I am on loan from Santa Anita, so I'll be doing a little bit of reporting for Friday, and then Saturday I'm on the desk early and then reporting late.
Excellent. Matt, what do you have work-wise this weekend and coming up soon?
Nothing really this weekend, just a little bit of a write-up over on the website. And then next weekend I'll be up there for Jockey Club Gold Cup. And then I don't have a week at home for another 5 weeks. So that'll be fun.
Oh my goodness. How was, I'm looking.
I'm sure your wife is thrilled.
Yeah, I haven't had that conversation with Susan yet about how
I hope you're buying lots of gifts.
Yeah, I came home with a little stuffed horse from Woodbine. And then I came home and I had a hat, and she goes, "Did you get anything from me?" And I said, "Well, no. What did you?
Yeah,
what did
you know what
want?
You should get her next time you leave? Someone to come and clean the house, or like have dinner ordered in, or something like that. Yeah. So that like just something to take off her plate from a mom with young children.
Yes,
it's definitely the seed was planted. And I needed that little kick in the rear end to like, hey, there's 3 people here.
Just be careful if you don't listen. The kick becomes the other side.
How other than your massive gift fail, how was Toronto?
Oh, it was great. I mean, Moira's spectacular. Good call by you, but she didn't go off favored. I think we were most surprised by that, the amount of late money on Rondor. But no, it's fantastic. Great folks up there. Worked with the group at TSN, and I'll be back again in a few weeks for the Woodbine Mile.
Hey, wait, Matt, I got to ask you then, since it's all been all over social, Moira or Nest?
Well, this is what I was going to say. Let's expand it one more. I was going to say most impressive, and we'll do this actually in a roundtable. And Naomi,
you can add Spenderella.
Absolutely, most impressive performance by a 3-year-old filly last weekend. Matt, you go first.
Do we have a hard out first? Just so we have anybody coming after us?
We don't want to go much longer because I got to get over there, but we can do 5 minutes more.
So the most impressive performance of the weekend, I think, was Moira. Spenderella, I love her. I love that versatility, the ability to be up close to the pace. Everyone has already made the comparisons to Tepin. I brought up even Wise Dan, but the idea that you can be close to the pace and still have a kick where the deep closers don't have a chance. They're not going to be able to run you down. Moira, I guess the unknown is, how does that form transfer to a different surface? I had asked some folks up there after the race. I said, I get the Canadian Triple Crown. Do you think they would send her to Keeneland? I hadn't even thought about the Cotillion, but I saw that was mentioned as a possibility. I would personally try to go to the QE2 on turf. I think she's spectacular. I said it. I believe it. I think Nest is the best 3-year-old in the country on dirt. I don't, obviously I have no idea if she's as good as the others on different surfaces, but, and there's more to it than just the Alabama's not why, it's what she's done in the 2 races prior, including the Oaks. So I guess we want to go 3 back and then the Ashland, even 4 back. But the other problem is I think people are looking at the speed figure saying, oh, well, that's what she is. The Belmont Fig is 10 points too low. I'll go to my grave believing that. Everyone's come back to run 10 points faster. So guess what? The clock was right. That 228 and change, Mo Donegal ran a 107. Nest ran a 105. She came back and ran a 104. Everyone's moved up 10 points. So she's run 2 races that are faster than any other 3-year-old has done this year, boy or girl, except for Charge It. I guess he ran 1 time going a 1-turn mile. Yeah. I think she's the best right now. And guess what? She should stay to the distaff. There's no reason to even consider the Classic. Stay to the distaff.
Well, especially if you see the likes of Flightline and Life is
right.
Good signed on there. It's not an ordinary Classic. Naomi, let's bring you in for your favorite performance in North America by a 3-year-old filly last weekend.
I feel really boring, and Matt already made the case. Nest, I made everyone watch it. I said, this filly is better than the majority of the boys in the US right now. That's how good she is. She's just, the way she did it in the Alabama, what was it, at least 4 lengths? And she just kind of, cantered home, no care in the world. So to me, she was by far the most impressive performance from a 3-year-old filly. I actually wanted to throw in a 2-year-old filly that might be relevant to you guys stateside, possibly, most likely actually coming to the Breeders' Cup turf sprint, perhaps. The Platinum Queen, the 2-year-old that took on 3-year-olds in the Nunthorpe. Yep. Yes, she got beaten by Highfield Princess, but it was the first time she went up against Elder. She nearly got to him. You kind of think, Acapulco with Wesley Ward, what was it, 7 years ago, who sent her over? She also got beat, but I thought the Platinum Queen looked incredibly good. And I know that Richard Fry is keen on getting her over to Keeneland as well. So I definitely feel like she's one to kind of put in your book and look out for, because I thought she did well.
That's one that some people are scratching their heads here, not understand, the idea that a 2-year-old racing against elders in the summer, which is something that happens in that race. That was a win in your in race for the turf sprint, as you point out.
But she'll probably go juvenile turf sprint, obviously.
I'll make the Spenderella case real quick. And you have to go with the figure is low. I think has to be part of the argument that she was the most impressive. But I just thought visually, and I know it wasn't a stellar field, but I mean, she just beat them so easily and did so stylishly that I'm not ruling out the idea of her as a future Grade 1 miler. I think she's the goods. I mean, look, obviously the other 2 were incredibly impressive also, but I want to make sure that somebody makes the case for her to be, Tepin Light at some point in the future. Michelle, what did you think of Spenderella and all the rest?
All right, so I think Spenderella was the most impressive 3-year-old filly winner this weekend. Moira was just beating up on a bunch of Canadian breds. I don't even know it was in that field. Nest, really, I feel like it was the distance of that race. We know that nothing else in her division clearly wants that much ground, and she just won it in a canter by half class and half the fact that she loves the distance. So I think the appearance of that blowout might have been just flattered by her affinity for that particular length, right? And then for me, Spenderella, look, she was really good over here. She went to Europe. I thought she brought her A game. She looked fantastic at Royal Ascot. She ran a bang up race there. And then not only did she ship back to Fairhill, she ships all the way out to California. I think overall the quality of that race was a pretty darn good one. It was a Grade 1, but sometimes our Grade 1s could be lackluster. We actually had a full field, as Delmar has been doing for the entire meet. And it was a really good field. She also did something a little bit different because Cairo Memories and that other horse shot out there. So, she came from farther back than she normally did. So to me, she showed that she can handle everything, right? She's gone far. She's shipped out of her house and she's done a lot. And then now she's showing me versatility too. So to me, the most impressive 3-year-old winner this weekend was Spenderella.
All right. We are out of time. I need to go back to Naomi so she can give us an update on who you were working for at York, where we can look for your stuff soon, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, of course, we'll talk racing to me. So I got the chance to speak with Ricky Hall, who's the groom of Baid, which was quite wonderful just listening to him, how that horse, how together they've really developed, and perhaps the partnership isn't over, but we'll see when he retires, kind of thing. So yeah, talk racing to me for sure. Doing part-time stuff with World Horse Racing as of September as well, hoping to arrive stateside soon, but we shall see. So in the interim, cycling around the Netherlands. So, yeah.
Any shot of seeing what handicap your own chances of making the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland? Oh no!
I don't know. I really wish, but visa troubles are a pain in my ass, and I keep getting no timeline. So a lot of bureaucratic. I really want to go. I'd be very upset if I don't go.
Leave it with me. Leave it with me. We know people. We'll see what we can do.
It's really it's frustrating.
Maybe I can get you into the USA. We'll see what kind of rabbits can be pulled out of what hats.
Yeah, I also really want to go. Love Keeneland, and actually my first Breeders' Cup on air was Keeneland for the Breeders' Cup show, so that was a really good memory.
There you go. All right, we are out of here. If you want more of this type of chaotic, hopefully somewhat informative content on the In the Money Media channels, we're going to be kicking off at 6:30 with a live Travers Monster Pod, one guest per horse. It's going to be a total shipwreck, but it's going to be fun. But meanwhile, this hour just flew. What a great team. So happy am I to be able to work with the likes of Michelle Yu, Naomi Tukker, Matt Bernier. Thank you, guys. Travers Week has arrived in Saratoga. One of the biggest weekends of the year will feature 7 graded stakes, including the 153rd running of the Grade 1, $1.25 million Run Happy Travers. Going to air on Fox from 4:30 to 6 on Saturday. Big Fox. That's what they call it. Big Fox. Fans are also going to get to witness prestigious Grade 1s, such as the Grade 1 $750,000 Resorts World Casino Sword Dancer, a win-in-your-in race for the Breeders' Cup, and the Grade 1 $600,000 Forgo. Some of the sport's biggest stars will take center stage at the spa, including Kentucky Derby winner Rich Strike and Preakness winner Early Voting. Join Acacia Courtney, Maggie Wolfendale, Jonathan Kinchin, and the rest of the NYRA team as they bring you live racing expert analysis and picks. Anytime you're looking to get what the Fox schedule is for the broadcast, we set up a little pretty link for you in themoneypodcast.com/TV, or you can find a lot more information at NYRA.com. Next up on the show, very happy to have assembled a team of players to talk about the Saratoga Pick Six, which begins in race number 6 on Saturday. Not the last 6 races, a couple of walkout races after the Travers. But these are 2 guys I always want to talk to when it comes to all things New York racing. We'll start with the legend, the man, the myth, the best-selling author, one of the best-selling handicapping authors of all time, a man I'm very pleased to say has had a profound impact, giving me opportunities in this business, and just a great guy to have on these airwaves. Steve Crist, how are things?
Hey, things are good, Pete.
And then we'll go in the opposite direction with the man that I famously, or maybe infamously at this point, plucked from obscurity, who you now see on your television every day if you're watching America's Day at the Races. He's Jonathan Kinchin. What's up, JK?
What's up, PTF? I'm over it a little bit. I'm still a little bit mad at you for making me talk about Cyberknife yesterday, but outside of that, everything's good.
I wasn't even going to bring it up, so that's what a good friend I am. I can't pick who the random number generator gives you to talk about. I could have overruled it, I suspect, but what fun is that? We'll get to that if you want to in a little bit, but let's start off with the race that kicks off the Pick Six on Saturday. It is race number 6. We've got the starter allowance going 7 furlongs on the dirt. Steve, we'll start with you. What numbers do you imagine will be on your Pick 6 tickets in this one?
I think 2, 5, 7, 8 locks up the race. The par for this kind of a race, these starter allowance races, it's somewhere in the low to mid 80s, 82, 83. Those 4 horses are the only ones in the race who have ever run better than a 75 figure. So to me, the race just separates into those 2 groups. My preference among those 4 that I mentioned would be the 8 Looney Sema. I think the race sets up for a closer. There's some suspect speed, and it's 7/8. So if I had to pick one, I'd pick Looney Sema. but all 4 of those will be on my ticket somewhere.
I'll chime in because I'm basically just accidentally copycatting you here, Steve. I thought Looney Sema would get the best setup, the 8 runner. The other one I was mainly interested in was the 5 Balthazar, who I thought had a chance to be the best speed. And I like that draw for feel like that's the outside most of the main speeds, meaning maybe a stalk and pounce trip is an option as well. Mainly 8 and 5 for me, but I mean, I think you're right on figures you're meant to back up with the 2-7 at least. JK, is it as simple as Steve and I are making it sound here to kick things off in the Pick Six?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of found that these starter allowance races are sometimes the most formful, because these horses qualify for the condition when they were horse A and now they're horse B, and they're different horses, they're different animals, they're faster, they're better, all of these things. And so it felt like to me that this was going to be a formful race. I completely agree with the 4 horses you guys mentioned. The one that I'll kind of add probably, because I think I'm going to have some skinnier opinions, obviously, as we get a little bit later. But I thought that the 3, Letty was interesting. The horse first time, Linda Rice, she hasn't been having a Linda Rice type meet, but this horse kind of feels like one that could take a step forward for her. She claimed the horse for 25. The horse ran right on that kind of cusp of being into that 80 figure that Steve was mentioning. And she showed a ton of early speed in that last race, or he did, excuse me. And I just feel like maybe this is a horse that with a couple of tinkerings could be in that category with these horses. So I'll spread in here just because I feel like a lot of these horses look exactly the same. It's not one of those allowance races that has a standout.
Let's move on to race number 7, an allowance race on the grass, going 5.5 on the turf. JK, will keep it with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna, Maxwell Esquire is always dangerous in these turf sprints. They tried to stretch him out last time, that didn't go well. So I think that this one will appreciate getting back to the shorter distance. And then Cazadero is one that I'm interested in. He showed a ton of talent. Let's not forget, Cazadero was the horse that probably the last horse. Maybe the last horse. I should have looked this up. It was maybe favored in front of Jackie's Warrior. No, I think Life is Good, maybe. But Cazadero was impressive as a 2-year-old, and then just never really kind of found himself. But maybe he'll find a new home with Brendan Walsh on the turf. So I'm interested to see that. There is some turf pedigree in there. There's some siblings that won on the turf. And so Cazadero will be one that I'll try to build some things around as well. And then just all like the ones that make sense, right? Ranger Fox, I think, is interesting. Charmed is interesting. I'm not going to take a stand in here, but I'm going to hope to catch a little bit of a price with either Cazadero or maybe they'll forget about Maxwell Esquire.
First time gelding as well for Cazadero. Steve, let's bring you in for your thought on this one and how you're looking to get through.
I was looking to lean on 2 in here. Maxwell Esquire, who I just think makes a tremendous amount of sense. He's run at this 2 other than level 3 times, and he has 2 wins and a third. So I think he did, this race just fits him to a T. And I was also interested in the entry, which is a Live Oak entry, Mark Cassie and a Mike Trombetta. I thought the Mark Cassie horse, Old Chestnut, was interesting. It seemed to me, and races never materialize exactly the way you think they will. I thought there was 7 one-way speeds and 2 closers in here, and I thought that this race could really heat up. So I'm looking for either Maxwell Esquire or Old Chestnut to run them all down.
Will you have backups, do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, a horse like Cazadero is interesting. There are a couple others who I think might be taken off the pace. A horse like Charmed, I'm not sure if he's quite good enough, but I'll have sort of 2 A's and 3 or 4 C's in this race.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Charmed, I think, is interesting. That's the one I put on top for another first-time gelding angle there. That was part of the case. But if you go back to the race 2 back, I think you can make a case that this horse really fits with anything that's signed on here and should be a good price. I had a goofy one to throw in that nobody's mentioned yet, the 8 Battle Station. I thought actually ran okay last time, chasing a loose leader, stuck on well enough. And in a race where so many of them have a last race figure with a decline, this was one of the few that I'm pretty sure is improving, or at least I can make you a case that's improving. I don't know if the race is going to be run to suit. I don't know if he's good enough, but don't like to get beat in a spread race by a 10-1 that I can tell a story about. So I'm going to have some 8s on my tickets as well. And as for my backups, as many as I can afford of the ones that you guys mentioned. Let's move to race number 8, Grade 1 stakes action in the Jerkins Memorial, 7 furlongs on the dirt, of course. JK, I'm pretty sure the first time we talked about Jack Christopher as a likely winner of this race was all the way back in October after the Champagne, when we were just talking about how far he wants to go. And it may have been you who basically predicted the future, saying, oh, they'll stretch him out, and if that doesn't work, they'll cut back and win the Jerkins. Do you still feel that way?
I wish I would have had a future wager when I said that.
You'd be better than the 6-5 you're going to see on Saturday. I'll tell you that much.
Or the 4-5. I still believe that his Woody Stevens is the best 3-0 performance we've seen all year from both sexes. Now it was around one turn, so in this Derby focused world we live in, that doesn't feel as cool to some people, I think, but to me it still feels pretty darn cool. And I just, I thought he was going to stretch out, and I'm still not convinced that in the right scenario he couldn't stretch out. That wasn't the right scenario for him in the Haskell when he kind of moved in the middle of that race. So, I think if he shows up, he's a foregone conclusion. If for whatever reason he's just not the same horse, or that took something out of him, or he hasn't been training well, or something that I can't predict, is the only thing that I think gets him beat. You can try to get creative in here, I think, but I think it might be a fool's errand to try to beat this horse.
So in terms of the pick 6, is he a stone cold A, or will you play both scenarios? Will you play 80%, 90% through Jack Christopher and then have some alternatives?
Yeah, I mean, there's a world in which I'll have one ticket with actuator on it, but that's more of a sentimental situation because Black Type Thoroughbreds and Jake Ballas, that I don't, but he's going to have to take a step forward and Jack's going to have to take a step back. I don't like playing situations where I need a good horse to run poorly and a lesser horse to run better. It just doesn't, those things typically don't match up.
For those that don't know, Black Type, longtime sponsor of the show, Jake, a good friend of both of ours, and actually a cool horse. He just looks like he's running into a bear in this spot. If I do take a little bit of shot against Jack Christopher, I'd probably go in the direction of the horses coming out of the Amsterdam, Accretive in particular. How about this horse's upside? Ran really well the last day, just his second start. Gunite, I'm not quite sure where that came from, but if you take that form literally, he fits too. I might do that sort of 80%, 20% idea with most of it rolling through Jack Christopher, but have some backups going with the 8 and the 9. And what the heck, I'll throw in actuator as well, just because I don't want to hear about it for the rest of my life if that horse goes and wins and I didn't have him on a ticket. Steve, give us your more objective than our assessment of this year's Jerkins.
I happen to agree with JK that if Jack Christopher makes it to the starting gate, he's the winner. He is just on a different plane from these horses. No knock on Gunite and Accretive. The Amsterdam was a nice race, and in most years, would make both of them big threats to win this race. I just think Jack Christopher is a ton better than these horses. His Woody Stevens was spectacular. He's something special. And my breakdown would be more like 95% through him and one ticket, just in case I'm right in every other race. You hate to pass up those pick 6s and we saw it recently where, you get 5 A's and one goofy horse like Chi-Town Lady, last time, and you get a $9,000 or $10,000 pick 6 with kind of 5 free squares. So I will have one ticket using Gunite and Accretive. Other than that, it's all Jack Christopher for me.
Next up, the Grade 1 personal ensign, a mile and an eighth on the dirt for these 4 and up fillies and mares. This is like the classic case of short field but long on talent. Steve, who's going to win it?
I think either Clarier or Malafat will win it. I don't think Latruska is the same horse that we've been watching for the last couple of years. She doesn't get out of the gate as well as she used to. And I think if she gets any kind of pressure these days, she stops. So I'm just using the other two. If Latruska comes back and runs her races from last year, congratulations to her. But she's going to beat me, and I will just go with Clarier and Malathot.
JK, who do you like in here?
Yeah, I'm gonna not similar, but I think both of us are just kind of trying to take a stand here a little bit. My stand is going to be that I don't think Malathot is as good as she once was. I think she's just kind of taking a step back, and sometimes that can happen with these fillies and mares. I think Clarier is improving. I think she's currently better than Malathot. I know it's obvious after she beat her in the Chuvie, and the Ogden Phipps, but I think that she just might be better than her. And they're similar styles. So however the race unfolds, it just feels like Clarier will kind of get the jump on her and be able to outfinish her. I think Search Results is a progressive type that you got to consider. I thought she ran extremely well in the Ogden Phipps and arguably probably ran the best race in the Ogden Phipps. She came back in the Molly Pitcher and took advantage of a field that she laid over. I'm going to give Latruska one more shot just because there's been races in her career where she flops and then she comes back and she runs big races. She seems to be training well at Churchill. And I'm going to give her one more shot, just one more, but one more shot. So I'll use Latruska, Search Results, and Clarier. And then I'm going to probably play this situation where if Malathot wins, I lose.
JK hoping the personal ensign is as easy as 1, 2, 3. I'm on the positive case of Latruska because I like the fact that it looks to me like she's been laid out for this since the Phipps. And that was such an unusual scenario where the trainer famously not being happy about Search Results really making Latruska work. I don't think they're going to go near her early. I think, especially with the legitimate concerns that Latruska might not be Latruska anymore, she might just get a little too much rope. I'll back up with the 3 and the 5. Let's move on to grade 1 action in the Sword Dancer. Winning your in race for the Breeders' Cup Turf, going 1.5 miles. An interesting stranger in here in number 3, Broom. And then a lot of horses we've talked about a whole lot on this show. What numbers will be on your tickets, JK?
This division I think is a little bit hungry, right? It's like I said on the show yesterday, there's no bricks and mortar anymore for us. I think you have to use a horse like Adamo who's a likely contender. But I do feel like Broom it could potentially be the type of horse that just could lay over this field, right? His Breeders' Cup Turf last year was impressive. He got a fast number that day, and he did it against some talented horses like Yabir. So, I think that he's going to be the most likely winner of this race. I'm officially over the Gufo situation. I said it last time. I'm divorcing him. It's happened with the court. And I gave up custody too. He can just have the kid. I don't think Soldier Rising is very good. He was all out to win that allowance race. Channel Maker just doesn't seem like the same horse anymore. I think that this will be a race where I take a pretty significant stand with Broom as an A type, and then maybe have a horse like Adamo just as a B, just for whatever reason, just because I think he's the other one that's okay in this race. And if for whatever reason Broom doesn't fire, then I want to have Adamo to keep this thing alive.
Folks who've been paying attention over on the website have seen some great stuff from our man, Stephen Bonnick, helped out, backed up by our figure translator, Rob Dove, one of the top 10 pro punters in the UK today. He gave the Hardwick run a 103, which I thought was interesting and gave a little bit of perspective on Broom's potential relative quality to this group. I was going to keep it simple. It's actually exactly the same as you, JK, 3-1. And I was going to hope to get out with those two numbers. Steve, how do you see this one?
Those are my 2 A's as well. I thought Adamo's last performance was excellent. Broom on his best day lays over this bunch. And honestly, I am so tired of this division of horses. Every big day, it seems, Derby Day, Belmont Day, Travers Day, we have the 1.5 mile grass race before the main event. And, the Rock Emperors and Tribuvans of the world, man, we've been watching them for 3 or 4 years now. I agree with JK. The division is kind of hungry. I think Adamo and Broom just a notch above what's still going.
You will have a bunch of backups, though, I'm intuiting from what you're saying, but very spready.
Yeah, more like C's, with the two I mentioned, Rock Emperor and Tribuvan. On their best days, they can run with the other two, but their best days may be behind them.
Let's move on to the race that gives the day its name, the Grade 1 Travers. Sorry, we were supposed to have a whole show just focusing on this, and now we're going to give this short shrift in about 90 seconds. But that's the way the ball bounces sometimes. Steve, who's going to win the Travers?
I think your winner is going to come from either Rich Strike, Epicenter, Early Voting, or Zandon. I am not a Cyberknife fan, and I think that Ain't Life, Grand Gilded Age, and Arturius are just not good enough.
I love the succinct and bold statement there. I'm interested that you're including Rich Strike. What's the case for him?
The case for him is that he beat good horses in the Kentucky Derby. He ran a number that's, good enough to win this race. And, people deny it when big long shots win. It was like when Mind That Bird won the Derby. Well, he'll never, run a good race again. And then he comes back and runs second in the Preakness, beaten 1 length by Rachel Alexandra. I mean, just because we didn't see something coming doesn't mean that it was a complete illusion. I'm not going to be shocked if this horse runs his Derby again, back at his Derby distance. He could win this.
If I held your feet to the fire for a top pick, Steve?
I would, Epicenter's probably the most likely winner, but he's sure no bargain at 7-5.
JK will bring you in. I know one horse you're not going to talk about because I know you're not a big believer when it comes to Cyberknife. Who will be on your tickets? How are we going to get paid on this Travers Day Pick Six?
I mean, Cyberknife, I like the horse as a 4-legged animal. I just can't root for the owner. I'm going to single Epicenter just based on the fact I thought he had not a horrible trip, but he had the worst of it in the Jim Dandy against 2 horses that are in this race that I think have shots in this race. So if I feel like he beat 2 horses that are good enough to win the Travers and he did it with a poor setup, then I have to kind of lean on him. He's just a consistent type of horse that just always shows up, always runs his race, and he can run from different spots. If he finds himself on the lead, which I don't think will happen, I won't be upset about it. They can also take back, make one run. That's just the kind of horse he is. There's 3 horses. I'm going to use all 3 of the Chads as kind of B types. I know Chad is kind of high on Arturius, and he's interested to see how he's going to handle this added distance. He says he's training well. He seems to be training well. So Arturius is one that I'll probably use as well. Zandon, people have always, that was my Derby pick. I like Zandon. It's just hard for me. Like he had dead aim on Epicenter, didn't run by him in the Derby. And then, I thought he had a pretty darn good trip in the Jim Dandy. Now, I don't think that's his style. So maybe you can make a case that take back and make one run might be kind of more his thing. So I don't want to leave him off of tickets. And then Early Voting is a horse that I've actually kind of come around to. He's kind of my, I don't want to say wise guy. He's a Preakness winner, but he's kind of my sneaky one because he had the best trip arguably last time in the Jim Dandy and didn't really fire. I think he could get brave out on the front end. I think they might be a little bit more aggressive with him than they have been in the past. And if you look at pace figures, it is as weird as this sounds. If you look at pace figures, Early Voting arguably ran a better race than the Jim Dandy, depending on what pace figures you look at. Just the way that race kind of unfolded. And so I'm going to give him another shot. And, I understand Steve's point. I'm one of those people Steve's talking about that want to, kind of throw away a long shot who wins a big race. I said Rich Strike will never win another race. I stand by that. I don't think he's good enough to beat these horses off a 77-day layoff, going 1.25 miles on a deep and tiring track after 6 public works. He doesn't strike me as that, no pun intended, as that talented of a horse.
We'll see how it plays out on Saturday. I'm Team Epicenter, and then I will probably be having some backups with Cyberknife just based on that number in case he comes back and repeats that. And then exotics-wise, I'm definitely going to have a one-way Early Voting Zandon. I think there's a chance that those two sort of just do their thing. I think I said Early Voting. Epicenter Zandon is the one-way exact I want. And then I'm also going to mix a little bit of Gilded Age into second and third with those horses as well. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Sorry I rushed us along here a little bit, but we've got some folks in the green room, and we're just going to wish you Godspeed this weekend. And Steve, we hope to see you up here before it's all said and done.
Sounds good.
Cheers, guys. Cheers, JK. We'll see you on TV. All right, let's
See you later.
just the Travers is many things. One of them is the second leg of the Betmakers Bonanza, a bonus that connects the Haskell, the Travers, and also the Breeders' Cup Classic. In the first version of it, we did have a winner. Authentic made an extra million. We'll see on Saturday if Cyberknife can continue. Just one of the fun innovations from our friends at Betmakers, who have now gotten fixed odds betting back in the USA. First time in over 100 years. It's been a big success at Monmouth. Great for horse players. 70% of winners paying more on fixed odds than they are on the tote. Fixed odds betting is an exciting new way to bet that really puts the power to get value in your hands, because the odds you bet are the odds you get. You're going to be hearing a whole lot more about fixed odds betting opportunities across the In the Money Media Network, and even in this next segment. Next up the show, very happy to bring in our team that we like to have talking about the Saturday Win Early Pick 5 at Monmouth from a fixed odds perspective, as well as a pool betting one. I am speaking about from inthemoneypodcast.com. And if you're only listening, you're missing out on the full Astros regalia that we're being treated to. One of my favorite jerseys in the history of sports, honestly, the rainbow. Nick Tammaro, what's going on, man?
Doing great, my friend. Just a few miles away, unlike normal. So very much looking forward to this big weekend.
And then we also have a man who hails from even farther away than Houston, from Betmakers. It's Dallas Baker. Dallas, what's up?
Mate, I actually did a bit of traveling yesterday and the day before, and did travel through Houston and spent 4 hours sitting on the tarmac there. So
you're an honorary
Houston experience this week, Nick. Thanks for the hospitality at the airport.
Hey, Texans are welcoming people.
I guess Absolutely. It's Houstonian. You call someone from Houston a Houstonian, not a Houstonite. Okay, Houstonian. I got it right now. We heard in the ad that we played right before this about the Betmakers Bonanza. I assume, does that make clear who you're rooting for? You're rooting for Cyberknife to
absolutely
ahead of the Classic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got great excitement out of when Authentic did what was almost the impossible in the first year we did the Bonanza Pete, which was the Haskell into the Derby, into the Breeders' Cup. And, when we started that series, it was almost like how, the effort to try to keep a horse up to win those races, let alone being good enough to win those races, seemed impossible. But Authentic, the history books show that it did the impossible. So I think I don't think it's easy, but it's an easier sequence than what Authentic had to do. Yep. But yeah, Cyberknife, by winning the Haskell, he now is 2 races away, only 2 pretty easy races away. Just got to win the Travers, and then just got to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. Nothing, you just do that walking around the block, don't you? But yeah, but the good news is the Bonanza is alive and well, and Cyberknife is sitting there as a very good chance to be winning the second leg and go on to the Breeders' Cup Classic and hopefully emulate Authentic, because that creates a great deal of excitement for all of the folk at Monmouth Park, and and obviously an extra little bonus for the owners to, if they could pull off that, which is huge in itself, but an extra million if they can.
I think, and Nick, tell me what you think about this, because there also might be a lesson related to the conversation we had earlier in the week about field sizes and what we talked about early in the year about trying to get more horses racing in the Triple Crown races. I feel like the bonus actually might be a non-zero factor into why they're choosing this spot over a race like the Pennsylvania Derby. I mean, is there a lesson potentially? Am I grasping at straws with that? And is there a lesson to be learned about trying to come up with some creative bonuses or purse incentives to get the top horses racing against each other in the top races in a way we think can really help elevate the sport?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think especially in a year like this where we've seen such a low level of participation in graded stakes races on dirt, we have to be looking at any incentives, any things that could get more horses to the post. I mean, no doubt about it. So I think this one specifically has to do with Betmakers. And that's the story that I'm going to stick to. Kidding, and all kidding aside, no, I think it has everything to do with it. I think that under normal circumstances, I think this horse would have been sent straight to Pennsylvania. I think, you've got to try, and you're drawing live for $1 million. You've got to try, right? There's no reason not to. And the other thing is that, he could also put to bed the divisional honors if he wins this race, more than likely with 3 grade ones.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I think that's part of a broader discussion, Pete, about obviously we've been over here pushing the fixed odds barrow, but I think there's so many different ways that the US racing industry can improve. cooperation between the tracks would be just amazing. And if you can get tracks, I mean, look, we're talking absolute top end with a bonus like that. But then if you can bring it into having a circuit around with, the tracks that are closest to each other, and then creating even a smaller circuit for lesser horses as well. Like, horses that are usually running for 50,000, that you might put a, $100,000 or $150,000 bonus on a series of races for that specific class as well too. But
love that.
Also too, the less is more thing is really, I think, a discussion the industry needs to take, because we're seeing it at Monmouth now by having these 4 days of racing, and essentially all you're doing is thinning out the fields across the other 3 days. And I was speaking to a pretty switched on official during the week that has tried, modeled it out and shows that it's actually returns more money if you run less races, because you have better quality races. Obviously, the cost of racing, and also too, I think the key point into it is it creates greater return to the horseman as well too. So by having it a little bit more refined and condensed into better racing, which obviously equates to, actually is the bottom line is better for the horseman. But I know it's hard, and the obvious thing is to think that the more races you run, the more
it's counterintuitive. Yeah, it's absolutely counterintuitive, and I think horsemen default to shorter fields are better for me because I'm going to win a higher percentage of the time mathematically. But I'd love to look at that modeling and maybe even have that person on the show, because I think it's a key point, and we need to start looking at this right. And of course, you didn't say the obvious, but I'll chime it in. What's better for horse players is obviously what you're
absolutely,
well.
sure. Absolutely.
Racing.
I think it's a pretty rusted on statistic that say somewhere between 12 and 14 horses in a race is the optimum number of horses for maximum turnover. So I mean, and we're a long way off that average in the US. So I mean, getting that average is not easy, but that is the optimum level of handle for racing. So I mean, if you can start working towards that first and foremost, I think then the returns are going to be a lot better.
We're going to dive into this. We'll kind of speed round here, but obviously Monmouth, excellent track to be playing. If you're playing Saratoga on Saturday and you want action between there's still a long time between post times with that's part of why it's the early start, the late finish. So I think folks are going to want to be looking at our other tracks, Monmouth and Woodbine. We'll start with Monmouth and the Win Early Pick 5. It's usually the earliest Pick 5 in the nation. Not so on Saturday with the super early Travers start, but it's still a good way to get things to keep things cooking and keep the action flowing on Travers Day. This starts at 12:15. 2-year-old allowance race. We don't see that many of those anymore. 5.5 on the dirt. Let's start with the prices. Dallas, who did you make the favorite in here?
Yeah, Wild Mule, pretty obvious favourite, Pete, about $2.60 or $2.60 or around about the 3-2 mark. Ahead of Roll Again Dancer, $3.60 or 5-2. Bright forecast, a little bit longer than that, $3.70, a fat 5-2. And the only one under double figures is number 5, Caught and Collected at 7-1 with Paco Lopez on it, or $8 in the decimal language.
For Wild Mule, the favorite, are you with or against, Nick?
Yeah, I think with. This horse was a pretty impressive debut winner during a barrage of wins for Isaac Castillo back on the 2nd of July. That was against New Jersey breds. And I think Jerry Hollendorfer is just being conservative. This is a horse that really isn't worthy of a stakes try, even against Jersey breds. So going to a logical spot, first time against winners. He looked like he'd be pretty tough to handle. Roll Again Dancer ran in a live race, 2 starts back. That was won by Great Navigator, who, of course, came back to run second in the Sanford. The runner-up in that race, Ia, came back to took a pretty awful beat at Saratoga yesterday, looked home and cooled out at about the 16th pole, and then ended up getting nailed right on the wire. I would use Wild Mule as an A and Roll Again Dancer as a B.
All right, let's move on to race number 2, where we've got $40,000 maiden claimers on the turf going a mile and a 16th, field of 8, scheduled to head postward. Nick, we'll keep it with you.
Yeah, I'm a little intrigued here by the 4 Office Etiquette getting in light with Matty Rowland on board, just carrying 108 pounds, which I don't try and put a whole lot of emphasis on these weight breaks, but this is one that's pretty significant. I mean, he's going to be getting 10 plus pounds from the majority of his rivals here. And I do think you're going to see a lot of money go to a horse like Strasbourg, who doesn't have turf form. And obviously, it's a guess as far as whether he'll take to the lawn. Tap the Candy's the horse to beat, has the right kind of tactical speed. I think when all is said and done, I'd be comfortable having the 2, 4, and 6, and the 1, 4, and 6, because the 1 looks like the inside speed. And but I'm going to mainly play the 4 in terms of anything vertical.
All right, there you go. 4, 6, and 1 for Nick in race 2. How does the market look for Nick's selection, office etiquette, and all the rest, Dallas?
Well, those following Nick will be cheering for the 1. It's a 30-1 chance on our market. Nick, is that all right with you?
Fine with me.
Yeah, all right. So Destiny Joy's 30-1, and our actual rank outsider in the race. Favourite is Tap the Candy, who you only sort of briefly mentioned there. $2.80, 7-4 in my language. We do $2.80 decimal. Ahead of Strasbourg, obviously with that query on it, keeping it a bit safe at $3-1 or $4. And Office Etiquette, which Mick mentioned as well, is $5-1 or $6.
Where did you land on Strasbourg? Not in your final reckoning of tickets. Did you have something against him, Nick, or did I write it down wrong?
No, I don't love the setup here going to the turf. Union Rag's a very low percentage turf sire. And this is a horse who I think they've just mainly thrown their hands in the air, dropping in class, looking for a different surface.
Yeah, I mean, that 3-1 could easily become 10-1 too if there's no money for it too, Peter. It's just one of those things where you've got the that sort of doubt in it. Keep them a bit safe early, see what the market goes, and if there's no real market signal for it, it'll get chased out pretty quickly.
Race 3, 2-year-old maiden special weights going 5 furlongs on the dirt. Another field of 8 on the morning line. A Global Surprise is your 5-2 favorite. Is that how it looks on fixed odds, Dallas?
No, a lot shorter, mate. Avila is the most dangerous stable at Monmouth by about 100 yards. I know, like, you've got stats that people train winners or whatever, but I can tell you the most dangerous trainer at Monmouth is the Avila stable this season. So that's 6-4 in our, or 3-2 in the fractional language, $2.50. Ahead of Box and Ben at $3-1 or $4. $4-1 or $5 for Recruiter number 2, and the other Avila horse in the race, El de Chirel, is 5-1, along with Ebby's Candy at 5-1 or $6 in decimal language.
Which numbers will be on your tickets in this hinge leg of the early pick 5? Nick?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. So it looks like the better workouts are with Global Surprise on the Avila pair, but the better pedigree is El de Chirel, who is a half to Laurie's Rocket and Greeley's Rocket, both of whom were stakes winners. The dam herself was stakes placed at Monmouth, ran second in the Incredible Revenge as a 4-year-old. The experienced horses here don't look like much. So the tricky thing from a pick 5 perspective is how do you bet into a pool where you're really trying to figure out how much action the 2, 5, and 7 respectively are all taking. So that's the difficult portion of it. I'll take the 5 and 7. I'd use the 4 a bit as a backup. Little Green on debut should improve at second asking, and the 2 as well. I think Cal Lynch is a pretty dangerous trainer.
No doubt about it.
And I'll guarantee you one thing: the Avila runner that's red in our book will beat the other Avila runner home.
Yeah. You've been good at that game.
Yeah. What's that? Sorry, mate.
You've been good at that game.
Well, they've been very good at that game. I can assure you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they're very. It's, as I said, they're the most dangerous stable, and they've got most things right.
One thing you can do is, and to maybe give you a clue, I don't know when they're betting, Dallas, but if you go to the website, the Monmouth Park Bets website, you could maybe ahead of time get a little bit of signal as far as that goes.
Yeah.
And in any case, it's just a useful reference for horse players to see, the morning line's great and all, but how about a line that people are actually taking bets on as a tool to use just as a horse player, even in your pool betting? When does that stable money typically turn up?
Yeah, generally, Pete, this is, just a bit of a motherhood statement, but generally the teller machines on Monmouth open up about half an hour before the first race or thereabouts. And a lot of the smarter money normally comes in sort of in that first 45 minutes of betting opening on the day of. That's generally, there can be, good bets the day before or whatever. But if you wanted to nail down a precise time, I'd start looking at it from what is the first race? 12:15, from about 11:45 on Eastern time. I'd start having a look at that, and then obviously when we get the serious bets, and we are taking some serious bets at the moment, then you'll see that the market will change. So that'll normally mean that's been a good bet on it.
And the website, I want to make sure we give it precisely to people if they want to go and look for this info. What's the exact URL?
monmouthbets.com. And at the moment, you need to be in New Jersey and a New Jersey resident to sign up. That is going to change soon, Pete. We're just sorting out a few of the geolocation issues. But at the moment, a New Jersey resident in New Jersey can sign up for that and use it fully functional betting on Monmouth races. And for everybody who signs up, there's free $50 there waiting for you. No strings attached. You don't have to deposit anything. There's just a free $50. So if you are in New Jersey and a New Jersey resident at the moment, give it a try and start betting on Monmouth. But as you said, if not, you can just keep an eye on the prices. And also, too, I mean, it's going to be a good guide to where the tote ends up. I can assure you the fixed odds prices are a lot closer to what the tote prices are going to be, up until that, 5-minute mark out from where the tote pools start getting mature. So if you want to get a good idea about where the horse is going to start on the tote, the fixed odds market's your window into that as well too.
Let's speed round these last couple of races that we're going to talk about today, starting with race number 4, $30,000 claimer going 6 on the dirt. Nick, who do you like in here?
I thought the 4 back at you would be tough, second off the clean. Jamie Ness's barn, even though we've heard some negative things about stuff going on in other states, he's continued to hit at a pretty high rate here at Monmouth. I'd probably be using the logicals here, 4, 5, and 6. Michael Simmons with One Whirlwind Ride is a dangerous horse.
Quick overview of the market, Dallas.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the market with the addition of one other. Ridge Point around about 5 to 2, $3.40. Back at you 7 to 2, $4.50. And the one that Nick didn't mention at 9 to 2 or $5.50, BB Bad, ahead of the Michael Simmons runner, One Whirlwind Ride at 5 to 1 or $6.
Let's move on to so many 2-year-olds today. Another 2-year-old race in race number 5 in the pay leg for these 2-year-old fillies, maiden claiming $25,000 level, going 5. Quick question about that, Dallas. Who'd you make the favorite?
This is the Nick Tammaro race of the day, the high, wide, and handsome, Pete. We love these. Mate, it's very hard to sort out the favourite. It's really nothing between the top 3. Free Shot is just favourite at the moment, 3 to 1 or $4, ahead of a fat 3 to 1, a Sirenetta at $4.20. And then at 7 to 2 is Lady Lancer or $4.50. And then not far away from them is West Virginia Gal at 9 to 2 or $5.50. So, so very little between the top 4 runners.
Nick, who do you like to pay out this win early pick 5?
Yeah, inside 3 for me. I thought Free Shot was pretty interesting, being by Midshipman. Don't love the draw, but this is a barn that's obviously done very well at this meet. And the 2 and 3 look like the most trustworthy, experienced horses. That's not saying much, but I would side with them somewhat comfortably.
We've got the Sapling as the featured race later in race number 9 to cap off all the 2-year-old action on the day. 200,000 in the pot here, going a mile on the dirt. Nick, give me a quick thought.
Interesting to see Javier Castellano go down to ride Lost Ark, and he's got 2 mounts on this whole card. You're expecting this horse to run well, looked like a good debut, might really need Lasix, which he's able to get at Monmouth. So I'm interested to see where he stands. Same with V-Mart, who won a restricted maiden special weight race up here at Saratoga and now stretches out in distance for Juan Avila. So we'll certainly be aware of what's going on there.
2 and 5 for Nick there. What prices did you make those runners and all the rest here, Dallas?
Yeah, Lost Ark, a pretty obvious favourite, I think. But this is a great race. It feels like an early season Sydney 2-year-old race as they're sort of starting to work out who's heading towards the Golden Slipper. It's, like you've got a couple of form lines with big power wins and all of that. It's great. I feel like I'm back home. Lost Ark is $3 or 2 to 1, and your favourite ahead of Bourbon Spirit and American Blaze next in line at 4 to 1, and down the bottom Saloon $6.50 in the decimal, and V-Mart $7 for the Avila stable or 6 to 1.
Great stuff, guys. We'll do it again next week. Nick, I'll see you over there. Dallas, can't wait to see you soon as well.
Lovely. Thanks, boys.
Sounds great. Thanks.
We've got a contest to tell you about on Travers Day from our friends at Monmouth Park. You've got to be at Monmouth to play in this one. Just FYI, Monmouth and Saratoga races only, 10 races in total. Brian Skirk is going to have all of the details if you reach out to him or visit the Monmouth Park website in the contest section over at monmouthpark.com. That's not the only contest I want to tell you about. We're getting real close to the Kentucky Downs King of the Turf handicapping challenge. Going to be spread out a little bit more this year, which I think will be even easier for players. We want to put this on your radar. The first one is in early September. So to get all the information about this, we've created a pretty link where you can just go ahead and sign up in themoneypodcast.com/King Turf. So go there and get all the information. We'll explain everything in much more detail next week. Hopefully we'll get Brian on the show. He's helping our friends at Kentucky Downs run that one. So 2 contests to know about for this weekend and beyond. Next up on the show, very happy to bring in a segment sponsored by our friends at RaceLens power user, Matt Vagvolgyi. Matt, how are things?
Doing great, Pete. It's a great day. We're on the eve of Travers, getting ready for that. So good day of racing today. Hopefully, if this rain stays away, although it doesn't look like it, but hopefully it doesn't impact too much. And looks like great weather tomorrow. So in the high 70s, which is fantastic. So I've been to some Travers where I've been in a puddle melting. So it's certainly good weather projected for tomorrow.
The first thing that came to mind when you talked about evil Travers weather, I hope I have the year right. I think it was 2002. It could have been 2001. The Medaglia d'Oro year. I swear it was in the 50s and raining. Everybody had to buy sweatshirts. It was absolutely freezing that day when he romped home in the mud. But yeah, you're right. More often than not, it's a heat bath. Let's just hope that whatever rain we're getting today isn't going to impact things tomorrow too much. But I'll tell you what, and I said this point in the Monmouth segment, and I mean it even more here in the Woodbine one. There's too much time between races on Travers Day. I'm definitely planning on either finding a window or a place that has Woodbine and Monmouth on the TV, or just pulling it up on the computer and making sure that we keep some action going between these Saratoga races. And I will be honest, I did not get a chance to do the normal work I do on a Woodbine Saturday, just been underwater with everything going on. But that's another one of the reasons why I thought RaceLens is a great tool to use, I think, when you're a little bit behind the 8 ball. And it's perfect that we're going to get you to guide us through this card, some spot plays. Well, one spot play, and then we'll look at the last 4 races like we typically do. And I'd love if you, as much as possible, Matt, could shine a light on how you use RaceLens specifically to come up with these picks and potentially be a time saver on a day like Travers Day. That's potentially, crazy, not just for me, but for a whole lot of horse players, when you don't want to miss good opportunities happening at other tracks. You don't just want to punt on everything else going on. So we'll start off, I think you said the second race, which happens at 1:29 p.m. We'll be well into the Saratoga card by then. That's the first one where something popped up?
Yeah, I thought it was, it's one of those races. It's kind of a, terrible race, I'll be honest with you. It's just in terms of the horses that are in there. But again, I'm attracted to those because I like to see, is there some kind of angle or something that I can look at specifically, like a horse doing something different, something new. Maybe there's a misfit in there that has some dirtied up lines that could be a price and might get overlooked. And, like I've always said, using RaceLens, when you create these different angles, they remain there, right? So like you mentioned, Pete, for days where I will be playing, I'll be simulcasting out there. I'll have my spot in the stretch at Saratoga with screens all around me and certainly going to be playing anything and everything with the time in between races. But it's one of the things I do every day is just scroll through every track and see if anything pops up that's interesting. I make a note of it, and then I go back and handicap that race. So I kind of collapse and react out. Maybe I'll play something multi-leg, or maybe I'll just play that race. But that's helpful because, there's a lot of different action. It's hard to go through the form race by race, every track. How much of that information are you actually retaining, right? Where sometimes when the, interesting stat pops out, it makes you look at it. So that's what I'll be doing. And that's where I think it's really helpful to get you focused for the day. And in this race, and that's kind of what happened here is looking at, I'm going to look at a huge long shot, a morning line, 20-1 in the morning line, looking at the 4, Silent and Discreet. And what I looked at here was a horse that, in my opinion, has a lot of pedigree to go long, and they've done nothing but sprint this horse, right? So going this year alone, just sprinting 5, hasn't really shown much, to be honest with you. Has competed against better in this field, but they finally stretched this horse out. So again, one of the things I really like is the research tab. One click, you can get all the pedigree information that you need. And, just looking at it from, on the sire side, Silent Name, this horse is done, as a sire tremendously well when you're looking at, these synthetic routes, right? And that's what we're here today for, and this horse is doing it for the first time. So, if you look at it on the first time routes on the sire end, out of 77 starters, 16 wins, that's 21%, but a positive 39% ROI. And the median win price is over $11, right? So you're getting prices there, and again, a solid percentage on these first time synthetic routes. But if you look at it also overall for the year, I mean, hitting that 26% just on these synthetic routes with a 51% ROI. So those are some of the things that jump out to me, doing something different, doing what this horse should do. So I'm going to take a little bit of a shot with Silent and Discreet stretching out for the first time, and maybe getting in at a big price.
I like that idea for a couple of reasons. One, as you point out, because of that median price, this is not an angle that the market has caught to, but then you get the double whammy good thing of having that darker form doing the wrong thing. So you really have a couple of reasons to take a little shot there, and you don't have to hit a lot of horses at that kind of price to make it worthwhile. So good stuff there. Let's zip ahead to race number 7 and talk about this one, a starter allowance for fillies and mares going 6.5 at Woodbine on Saturday. What did you come up with in here?
I'm going to look at a couple horses. I'll use the 5 Twister Alert, which there actually is a Twister Alert in Saratoga today, so be careful. Be careful on that. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I'm going to also look at the 4 Loaded Vixen as well. A couple different styles in terms of pace. Front end speed is good on these all-weather sprints, not so much on the routes. We'll touch on that in a little bit with some future races. So I kind of went with both ends of the spectrum here. So I do like Twister Alert the most. I think there's going to be a pretty hot pace. Multiple horses I think will try for the lead, with the 4 Loaded Vixen I think being best of speed here. But, Gallardo going to come from off the pace, won't be completely out of touch, but I think we'll catch a nice trip behind speed, top late pace figure in the race. Certainly on the trainer side, some really nice numbers there. So I'm going to go with Twister Alert as my top play. But again, it's possible that Loaded Vixen does have enough early speed, has a significantly higher early pace figure than all of them. Again, that always doesn't work out if you have another horse that wants to gun to the lead. But this horse is also, like we've talked before, Pete, has proven to go wire to wire on these sprints. So I'm going to take a shot with the 4 as well. I know morning line favorite 2-1, but I think Twister Alert will get some action as well. I like that horse coming off the pace.
Yeah, you never have to work too hard to convince me as a horizontal betting strategy, whether you're playing doubles or the pick 3 in this spot, that you want the best speed and the best closer onside, the pick 4 too in this race while we're at it. Let's move to race number 8, where we've got quarter claimers, $25,000 fillies and mares 3 and up, going 6 on the synthetic. Who do you like in here, Matt?
I'm kind of looked at this on a pace perspective 2 different ways. I think it could be pretty slow up front. And I do think the 5 Billie Jane can get to the lead. This horse has been running against much better. I think has really been running. This filly's been running way over her head, and I think finally finds a spot with this 25 claimer. Should be able to get the lead. I think Husbands will get the lead. That's what I project, and I think could slow it down on the front end. Might be able to go gate to wire here. So Billie Jane at 6-1 on the morning line is going to be the top play. I'm also going to back up with the 2 Super Lunar, just in case. There's a few horses that I think might try to gun to the lead from the inside. I think the 1 and the 3 might pressure the 5 Billie Jane a bit on the front end. If that's the case, I think this sets up perfectly for the 2 Super Lunar, just sitting right off that pace. Even if they slow it down, this horse is going to get first run with Emma Jane Wilson. So, and again, a horse that's proven to do this type of class level, has been successful sprinting. So I'm going to go with the 5 Billie Jane as the top play, but I'm going to back up with the number 2 Super Lunar as well.
We'll move on to the featured race of the day, which is an allowance race for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, going 1 mile and 1/16 on the synthetic. Some interesting runners in here for those that follow the circuit regularly. Maybe not the most paced signed on, at least according to Timeform US Pace Projector. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I do see it a bit slow on the front end as well. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it might quicken a little bit, especially if the 3 Richie's Noble Girl tries to press the front end. with the 2 and the 5. So I'm in agreement with time form overall slow pace, but I think it could quicken. But this is where I'm going to single. I'm going to look to lean on. Is it Lido Key, the one? I just think sits an absolute perfect trip. And has a monster late pace figure. It's one of those races where this horse is not going to lose touch with the field. I think sits right behind that front end speed. And again, to give you an idea, so in sprints, you can be successful on the front end, or at least that's what the numbers have shown at the meet so far at Woodbine. Sprinting, these all-weather routes are a totally different story, right? It's very difficult to go gate to wire here. Give you some numbers there for the meet so far. All-weather routes with the horse having the best late pace, hitting at 31% with a 87% ROI. So anytime you see this type of setup as well. So that's kind of the number side, right? The quantitative side, the qualitative side of just handicapping this race. On a pace perspective, I think sits in a perfect spot. Big punch late. I think it's going to be very, very tough. I love Tammaro on this horse. I know I'll get a good spot and a good ride. So that's what I'm going to lean on here as my my lone single of the sequence with Lido Key in the ninth.
All right, we'll move on to the nightcap where we've got 3 and up maiden special weight fillies and mares going 7 furlongs on the synthetic. 7 furlongs. Does it play more like the routes where you really don't want to wire, or more like the sprints where it's okay? Or have you looked at it on that granular of a level?
It's interesting. It's kind of a null stat. There's really nothing either way, specifically at 7 furlongs, because I like to do that. I want to see what give me the shortest distance, give me, the longest distance, then give me the most data subsets. Like, what do they run the most in terms of their distances? And then I looked at 7, which usually would play, you'd think play more towards the routes, but really not much. There's really no lean either way. So it's a pretty even in results wise in terms of distance. So not much in terms of speed or off the pace. It's kind of an even stat, which I found interesting.
That is interesting. Who do you like in here?
I went with the, so I'm going to use a few in here. I'm going to use the 5, 2, and the 1, the 5 Menagerie. Again, this is kind of a ho-hum kind of horse, but I do think gets to the right group here. Slightly easier than has been running against lately, but I think sits a good trip. I think it might be a little bit hotter than in terms of pace that time form is signing on for. So again, could get the right trip. Has shown to have some late kicks. So again, hasn't been successful this year, obviously in being in this maiden field, but I think has some nice back class to be the best in here. Northern Passage is another one as well. I think I like this horse running on the synthetic more than the turf tries, although that last turf try was pretty decent against better here, but has competed very well in this type of class level at Woodbine on the synthetic. Again, going 7 furlongs, I think is probably best for this horse too. Slightly more distance than has been running. Also going to use, as I mentioned, the 1 Tudor Peak. Just a lightly raced horse, second off a very long layoff. Wasn't much in terms of the debut effort, but nice effort coming back. Came from off the pace, just missed by a little over a length. I do like this horse wheeling back less than 30 days. I always love to see that long layoff coming back and then wheeling right back for another try in a short amount of time. So I think Tudor Peak is interesting. Probably going to be your favorite in this race, but 5-2-1 is how I'm going to try to close this out, Pete.
Sounds good. Now, for folks interested to learn more about Racelens, you had some news, Matt, about a new place you can find the product. Tell folks about that.
Yeah, so the AI-assisted side of the product, the True Odds, which is part of Racelens. So if you get the full Racelens package, that's part of it. Again, I like that. It's very simple to toggle through, different runners, different pace styles, pace projections. They also give basically their fair value odds based on a number of different metrics. That's available in the handicapping store at Naira. So if you're a Naira Bets user like I am, you can certainly head over there and check that out and pick that up. So very reasonable price for that. Very cheap to pick that up alone. But I always say I think the best is the full gamut is the full Racelens option, which we do have some good promotions there to pick that up as well.
I'll tell you about those. The site racelens.equibase.com. That's a good screen to go to if you want to sign up for this. And we've got promo codes for new customers, significant discounts within the money, And for existing customers, we have a good one too. And this one, folks should really be taking advantage of if you're already a RaceLens person paying attention. In the Money 40, the number 40, I think that gets you like a 40% discount on all new plans. So check it out. The website to go to, once again, racelens.equibase.com. I've been enjoying playing around with it. I want to play around with it more after Saratoga and do some more data type projects. I'll probably be bothering you, Matt. Actually, production meeting in the middle of the show. I'm going to bother you next week. We got a Kentucky Downs preview coming up, which I think will be very interesting to look at through the lens of RaceLens. Good stuff, Matt. We will be talking soon.
Talk soon, Pete, and be remiss. My wife just dropped this off in my office. I'm kicking off Travers Week very well with a beautiful with a beautiful Bloody Mary. That's with cool. An assist from the Brentwood as well. I'm using their mix as well.
Oh,
so
that's
it off right.
That is true love right there, folks.
Exactly.
A love story playing out right here on the In the Money airwaves. Matt, thank you so much, and we will be back right after this. Coming up on the show, you're going to hear our Baby Talk segment where we focus on 2-year-old racing. It's brought to you by our good friends at Gainesway. From top international bloodlines to rising stars on American soil, Gainesway has put together a stallion roster that is not only primed for future success, but currently making its mark on the track, led by Caraconti's rising star Spenderella, who you heard us talking about before in the opening segment of the show. So impressive in the Del Mar Oaks last weekend. Make sure to check out the entire roster for 2022 and see for yourself the power, passion, and performance of Gainesway. You can find more information at Gainesway.com. Next up on the show, guy who's been helping us out a lot here at In the Money Media and been really meaning to have him on specifically this segment ever since I met him at last year's Tucson Symposium, because he really seemed particularly interested in the breeding side of the business and 2-year-olds and what that market's all about. And I earmarked him then to do a Baby Talk segment with us. And today it comes to pass. He was working this summer at the racing office here at NYRA. He's back in Tucson at the University of Arizona, helping plan this year's symposium, as well as going to a bunch of classes. Welcome to the In the Money airwaves that now, Eric DeCoster. What's up, buddy?
Pete, hey, doing good. How are you?
Things are good. Where did your interest in 2-year-old racing in general come from before we dive in?
Yeah, I've just always been fascinated by bloodstock in general. So young horses, and then that of course leads right into the 2-year-old races. And soon I started to realize, I can actually make some decent money, analyzing them before they even get to the track, and that can be a perfect lead-in. So that's kind of been my forte, my go-to races I look at just on a day-to-day basis is the maiden races, see what value I can find, because that's what I've come to really enjoy. Is it's the hardest puzzle probably to solve in terms of day-to-day races, but it's also the most rewarding if you can hit it the right way.
It's fun as a fan and it's fun as a bettor, and they're the one races where pretty much always in theory going into a race who the fastest horses are. In a 2-year-old race where they haven't run, we might have the fastest horse could be a 10-to-1 shot. It definitely plays with the market. And I think it is an incorrect view that I often hear espoused by horse players that these races are somehow benefits to industry insiders. The things that you can look at the data available, whether it's sales workouts or a real knowledge of pedigree, I think can give you a huge edge over tips that you hear, because the reality, as we know, is that most horsemen, and when I say most, I mean nearly all, they might have a great opinion of their own horses, but it can be hard to know what's happening outside their own shedrow. And it's not their job to know that. It's their job to take care of the specific animals in their care. So just some of the reasons why I like 2-year-old races, and also reasons why, while I know we have a lot of industry people who tune into these Baby Talk segments and Baby Talk shows, I think they're useful for horse players as well.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly how I view it. Honestly, is you can get all the tips in the world and they might help you. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they really don't. But it's at the end of the day, it's the knowledge you can put together yourself of these horses and formulate your own opinion. And once you can come up with a confident opinion or mental formula yourself, that's when I think you really get good at nailing these baby races.
Speaking of 2-year-old races on Travers Day and people who help out a lot behind the scenes at In the Money Media, Tyler Wisman put together an excellent thread on Twitter looking at some of these races and the historical impact they've had. And it is amusing that in many, many instances, it's not necessarily the winner that goes on to be the best horse. And that follows a trend going back to, gosh, American Pharaoh. Heck, even Secretariat, Triple Crown winners, well touted. It didn't win on debut. Something to keep in mind when you're hearing these tips and trying to formulate your wagers. We'll see. Hopefully there's some future stars who are going to be on display on Saturday. There was also that funny stat bouncing around on Twitter. I don't know if you saw this one, Eric, and it was actually incorrect. There was a word missing, I think, in the stat, and I forget what year it started, but it was, since X, and X being a year a long time ago, there hadn't been a Derby winner who'd started in a Saratoga maiden. And the inaccuracy of the statement was that it didn't specify on dirt, because as soon as I saw that, I was like, well, what about Big Brown? Why doesn't that count? But, it was a turf race. I thought that was funny. I don't think there's any signal in it, but I did think it was interesting stat to see.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, you're right. The Big Brown would throw a little caveat in there, but it is interesting. And I think I've heard people just in conversation throw that stat around, and it's, we're still looking at horses that are going to do. I mean, it was a year ago this weekend that Jack Christopher broke his maiden by however many at the spa, and then now he's the heavy favorite for the Jerkins leading into it. So there's a good chance we're going to see some type of graded stakes level animal coming up Saturday.
Oh, no doubt. And I wouldn't rule out the Derby based on that. Though we're going to be talking a bunch this fall, I think, about the Churchill program of 2-year-old racing. And we'll do a bunch of baby talks around that as well. Let's talk about this first maiden race. It's actually the first race overall at Saratoga. Don't get caught out, people. 11:35 is the scheduled post time for this one. We've got a field of 7 going postward. And for me, Eric, maybe I'm just being master of the obvious, but there was one that stood out in here, the number 3, Verifying, with a pedigree that just jumped off the page. Justify off to a great start with first-time starters and a heck of a female family with a couple of winners, including superstar Midnight Bisou. This one cost $700,000 plus at Keeneland September. Now, I will throw one little caveat in here, and you can tell me if this puts you off at all. Brad Cox, known for getting firsters ready, but, and this I pulled from analysis over on DRF. I think this is a Mike Beer stat. Just 4 for 40 is Cox with 2-year-old first-time starters sprinting on dirt in New York. So just a 10% strike rate, a very low ROI, and in that sample, just 1 for 17 at Saratoga. Do you agree with me that the number 3 Verifying looks like the horse to beat? And does that Cox stat give you any kind of pause?
I agree. He looks like the horse to beat. You mentioned how great that pedigree is. It's a pedigree it's a win early pedigree. They'll of course go on to do great things from there, but a lot of this dam's offspring tend to win first or second time out. But that Brad Cox stat does loom even larger to me. It's not, obviously the New York stat is there. I just watching it, I didn't have an exact number, but I figured it was pretty low. But even then, he's good with his firsters, but it's still below the level that he regularly wins at.
That's a good point. You have to look relative to baseline to find the true signal sometimes.
Exactly. He usually wins 24, 25% any meet on a national basis. With his firsters, he wins a touch below 20%. And so I'm always willing to maybe look a little beyond them if need be. I'm never looking at a Brad Cox firster saying there's no way this horse can lose, because I know they might be really great, but there's also a fair chance that they can get. I remember a Cyberknife, I think, is a great example if we're going to keep it all Travers themed. Heavily touted on debut, but horse kind of beats himself, but nevertheless, that's still going to knock that percentage down. So I think he looks like the goods, but I'm very hesitant this first time out.
Who do you like instead?
I like the horse just to his outside, Didinger, for Butch Reed, and I think experience is obviously very important. That's not, that's not some random truth I'm speaking. Most people will agree with me, but I really liked his debut at Parks, even though it was a very narrow defeat. The way he finished in the last 100 yards, that kind of tells me, okay, maybe he just wants a little further. Maybe it took him a little while throughout the race to figure out what was going on, but he was a very unlucky loser that day. And it'll be interesting. The winner of that race, Belt Parkway, does run on the funny side. So maybe someone listening will, I don't think if Belt Parkway doesn't run well, I don't think that's a poor reflection on our horse Didinger here. But if he wins, of course, that's just going to elevate him tenfold. But I think the second time out, Butch Reed actually, if we go back to the percentages, 24% with second-time starters in maiden races relative to a 20% win percentage. So I think the work tab's solid. I think Didinger at a mild price could be able to upset a bunch of these somewhat touted first-time starters.
I saw it exactly the same way. That experience edge is tough to overrate, especially for one that was bet so hard on debut. And I pulled some historical numbers on Equibase actually on this one. Probably a sample going back further than Formulator. I had for the career with Reed 15% first out, 23% second out. So that's a very big difference. And the quick work since. I think Didinger is an interesting alternative to Verifying and all the rest as we kick things off at Saratoga. Let's pivot to our second race. We've got an all-maiden double, which is kind of fun for folks like us who really like these races. What numbers will be on your tickets, Eric, in race number 2?
We got. I think this is unlike the last race where I'm very confident in Didinger the 4. This time around, I'm very hesitant to say there's one true standout in my mind. Obviously, I think a lot of money is going to fly to Alexis Zorba. He's ran, well both times at Saratoga. I think this is a good chance for him to finally get in the winner's circle. Another horse with experience I like is the 7, America's Guest, who finished up pretty well last time out. Kind of just looked green. And then there's a couple firsters I think are pretty interesting. The morning line favorite is the 8 Take Me to Jimmy. Real interesting note on this colt and this pedigree. He's out of a dam who's produced 2 really nice runners for Chad Brown, 2 stakes quality fillies, and then 6 just very slow horses. So it's interesting. You don't know, but Chad Brown also trained both of those fillies, and he trains our colt here. So like them. And then 2 maybe mild prices with good turf pedigrees are Highland Lord. He's a half to Highland Sky, who was a first-time out winner at Saratoga probably 6-7 years ago, going 2 turns on the grass. And then the 9, The Count, is a full to a winner, and maybe it's some recency bias, but Thursday at the Spa, a filly for Christophe Clement, first time out, named Don't Look Back at All. Same exact pedigree cross, one going 5.5 on the grass. This colt looks like he can run a little further based off his first start. So a lot of numbers there, but I think that's kind of how you have to look at this race.
No, I mean, you can be spready, especially in the double when you've got a strong opinion in the first race. What did you make of the entry, the 3 Diamonds entry in this spot? I didn't feel like letting them beat me particularly in the back half of this double.
Yeah, I think as deep as you can go in this race, the better. And Mike Maker, grass 2-year-olds, I'm always afraid of. We saw early on in the meet him do pretty well with those. We know in general he does well with them. And they have good turfy pedigrees by name value. I should put it that way. The mares haven't really produced much, but when you see Kitten's Joy and Temple City on the top side, you always have a little bit of confidence getting on the grass. Dam side, especially on that 1A decanted out of a Chamartle mare. There's good things, and the work tabs are good enough on, especially I think decanted. If I was to take one of the 2, it'd probably be him. That being said, you never know. These Mike Maker 2-year-olds can always step up and run a big race.
Yeah, I agree. Decanted is probably the more interesting one. Fire Baron, you talked about the damn side of the pedigree. 7 winners she's dropped by my count, but only 1 turf winner. So that's not great. I do have a little bit of a thing for Temple City. So I'm happy to get as part of the price along with decanted. But in addition to some of the ones you mentioned, Highland Lord being one that I'm also particularly interested in, always kind of a Highland Sky fan. So those will be a couple of the numbers on my ticket here. I may take a stand against Alexis Zorba, who I feel like might be rounding into form. It might be time for the Joseph O'Brien experiment to start paying off. But I thought there were maybe some other interesting ways to go, and that might be a way to inject a little bit of value. Or if I play Alexis Zorba just using as a horse, not pressing the way that I normally would in a double with a horse that I expect to catch a lot of money. One more race we wanted to talk about, and we'll go to Kentucky to do it. Very interesting, big full field for Ellis Park's 5th race on Saturday. 3:52 is the scheduled post time. If you like any of the cases we've made on any of these races at Monmouth or Woodbine or Ellis, like this one we're about to talk about, I highly suggest setting an alarm on your phone. It's going to be very easy if you're at Travers, especially, to get distracted and be heading to the bar at the wrong time. But yeah, I think I'm going to have an alert on the phone for about 3:51 so I can make sure to catch this 2-year-old maiden race because it looks really, really interesting. Where did your guy go in here, Eric?
I think the lower prices on the morning line look like the best options, but it seems if it's the morning line reflects how things are actually going to shake out, you're still going to get some solid value going with those lower prices. The 5 Salute the Stars 7-2 ran huge on debut. I mean, he got pinched out really badly at the start, made this big sweeping move on the turn, rushed home, really was the best horse in the race, just got really unlucky. And that's just a general theme about a lot of horses in this race. They all kind of had a little bit of trouble, and a lot of them already have experience. It's kind of rare these days to see an August maiden where more of the field has experience than not. So Salute the Stars was definitely the biggest standout. That being said, I think there's a couple others that are kind of interesting to me. Solomon Vandy, the 3 for Ken McPeek, comes out of the same race. And I always love a Ken McPeek second-time starter. The numbers might not always reflect, but he just occasionally has a way. A horse who runs a smart enough race first out can usually do it even better the second time. So those are definitely the 2 biggest names in my mind, but I think this is a pretty solid bunch, and I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe the favorite get toppled by some horse who takes a good step.
Salute the Stars. The thing I was most interested in is you look at that running line, you see how far back he was early, and you expect that to be a fast pace, something that was falling apart a little bit. Not so, according to the Timeform US pace figures. In fact, you even have a blue-coded number in there. So Salute the Stars was doing plenty of running and is sure to come on for that run. One other that I'll name check that I thought was a little bit interesting was the forerunner St. Neots. This horse who sprinted on debut, took a very significant chunk of cash, about 7-2 that day. And then, as you pointed out, trouble, that so many of these have had trouble, and St. Neots was one of them, just kind of walking out of there, maybe going to be better accustomed on pedigree to going long. And I think clearly has talent based on the money caught on the first day. Could be interesting at a big price for Vicky Oliver, who's having such a good meet down there. Anything else you want to talk about at Ellis or anywhere else this weekend, my friend?
I mean, it's a strong card at Ellis. They got a couple good maiden races, maybe not for just the 2-year-olds, but I do also, one other horse I forgot to mention was the 12. I hate the post, but Easy Big Boy getting on the grass for the first time does kind of intrigue me in this 5th from Ellis on Saturday for Steve Asmussen. He has experience. He's been not really well beaten. He runs good races, but he ran into Gulfport and Damon's Mound in back-to-back races. So I can't fault him too much there. Didn't run well last time, but I do like the switch to the turf. Cloud Computing had a really nice runner of Chad Brown's I'm Very Busy a few weeks ago, one first time out on the grass. I don't know. There's not much turf pedigree for this guy on the dam side, but maybe one who, if you're feeling like going deeper in this race, could be one to throw in there, because I do think the switch to grass could help him improve. He has that semblance of talent. So the surface switch there looks a little promising.
Curlin's certainly not a bad turf influence on the dam side with that Smart Strike blood in there. And then I'll tell you this, just looking at the work tab, I haven't seen the works, but that last work looks better than the previous work. So this could be one who's coming into hand. And I'll say this about these bad posts, like none of us really, we don't like them from it's going to improve our strike rate point of view, but it's one of the things the public sometimes really overreacts to. And maybe this horse that looks like it should be a 6 or 8 to 1 shot ends up going off at 10 or 12. So definitely one to keep on side in this big competitive field. Good stuff, Eric. You did a great job, and we look forward to having you on soon. And we'll talk about getting some in the money participation when it comes to Tucson this year off air.
There we go.
That's going to do it for this edition of the show. We'd like to thank all of today's guests, the ones who were here with us on Friday morning as we record from the Little House on the East Side, and of course, our team that joined us for Horse Player Happy Hour. Can't encourage you enough to turn up for those shows. We get good participation. I mean, it's 160, 170 a week, up to 200. It should be more, frankly. We really, it's for such a good cause. It's so much fun. And we need to show the industry that horse players are going to respond when we come up with deals that are good to horse players. Like, for example, adding $20,000 to the tour pot at no cost to them. So come join us for Horse Player Happy Hour. I don't care if you play all the fours. We call that the Kilroy around here. Horseplayers.com is the place. Games go live typically on Tuesday, and I'll be pumping them, and we'll, get you involved, hopefully, in the future. So many other ways you can help out and support us as well. Our free newsletter, that's a great way to do it. inthemoneypodcast.com/email. Going to be adding some new content on there, hopefully some horses to watch, that kind of feature, which could be fun. And then In the Money Plus is where you can get little digests of the picks from the shows, as well as extra content, including I think we're going to have JK do the early pick 5 for Saratoga as part of this week's. That's the only place you're going to get that content. It really doesn't cost much, and it's a great way to help us out. If you want to help us out, you don't have the money, do the free newsletter, and also rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts, essentially. So if you're an iTunes person, do the audio on there. YouTube channel as well. We do have YouTube-only content sometimes. It's definitely worth subscribing. Leave a review. Helps people find the show. And it's not that people are going through and scouring reviews of podcasts and deciding what they want to listen to. It's more a case of the algorithm. When you leave comments, it helps the algorithm. And of course, if there's our 5-star reviews, they're going to help a lot more than anything else. All right. I thank the guests. We'll thank our founding partners, TRF Barbecue. That was so much fun this week, despite my eyeglasses. Well, not eyeglasses, really, contact lens fail. It's hard to read the numbers off those little raffle tickets, people, but I did my best. And Anthony Stabile bailed us out anyway, so that was cool. But that was a great event. So happy to see that sell out. And thanks to everybody who bid on the whiskey tasting. I'm really excited to get that going. That's going to be fun. We'll do more stuff like that in the future. But that made me feel warm and fuzzy. Thank you, everybody out there who supports the TRF 10 Strike Racing. We had Clay in the actually. There's a loft up above me. He was there for Alabama, and we've got Marshall back in town. He was part of the failed Monster Pod Live last night. He failed in the sense of technology. The show itself was great. You'll just have to take my word for it. But it was great to see Marshall. Can't wait to hang with him more this weekend. Thanks, though, most of all, to all of you, the listeners, for making these shows so much fun to do. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Producer Craig back with us, now married and back pushing all the right buttons. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your Travers Day photos.